Craig brain is not your brain or my brain. Love it or hate it or something in between. Welcome to the squishy alien middle inside of this dude's skull. Take a peek. Take a peek. Take a peek.
Hey, it's Craig. This week, talking about mind chatter. We've talked a lot over the weeks and in these writings about just the differences in some of the relationships that I have, whether that's my wife and I, whether that's my kids and I, whether that's my friends. I talk about my friend Dave Tosti, the head and the heart, which a friend of mine heard that and bought me this shirt. And I was like, dude, I know it's a little wrinkled. I like it. Thinking about a tattoo at some point. I don't know. Kicking it around. But what Levi and I talk a lot about just a range of topics. And one of the things that finally came up was this. Well, I wouldn't say finally. It was finally came up in, I think, us both asking each other better questions about it. Because it's interesting, like I think so many times, and this bothers me. Try not to let things bother me so much, but when you tell somebody how they're feeling, like Tristan, you're probably hungry, right? Instead of like, hey, when are we going to eat? Like, I'm hungry. You see, like, oh, you're probably cold, right? Or you probably felt that way when mom did that. I don't know. How did you feel? And when you realize, like, and I think, I mean, obviously I call this Project Craig Brain. I'm just letting you inside this, what did Levi say? The squishy alien, like whatever mind. And dude, it's not like yours. Your brain's not like mine. Not one's better or whatever than the other. They're just different. But I think so many times we walk around life and we just assume that, like, oh, that's what I saw too. I'm just seeing new things all the time now with my colorblind glasses because I've been colorblind my whole life. And then my wife finally bought me some glasses and I was like, that's what red is? Like, freaking, like these glasses, I'm going to put them on. These are my indoor ones, but I bought outdoor ones. I'm telling you, like that red light that I look at with this or that, like reds, greens, it's just been this like wild perspective of seeing something new. And in that same way, I think what Levi and I have discovered in our conversations is how different we are and how we operate, but how we process things and how we see things and then how we hear things. And we got in this conversation of just mind chatter. On the Christian Cannabis podcast, I actually talk about that with Chris. You can Google that or find that. Because I think this is an interesting thing. This is something that I thought was just everybody dealt with this. I thought, oh, like, I don't know, you have these like deep, profound times in your head all the time. Then I come to find out some people has like never done that at all. Or some people are like, no, how do you do that? Or, oh, I wish I could do that. Or, no, I have really dark chatter in my brain. And I'm like, all right, like, okay, that's interesting. So this post week, whatever this is on mind chatter was a combination of me sending messages back to Levi. And then my friend Chris, I was like, hey, Chris, what do you think about mind chatter? Hey, Levi, listen to what he says. Oh, I have this, but my mind works like this. And that awareness of like, wow, there's something going on in my head that when I talk about cannabis and all the hoopla about, oh, Craig said cannabis, connects him closer with God. And how's that? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. Dude, you don't live in my freaking head. You don't live in a constant world of to do and what's next and this and that. So if I remove that, why wouldn't I be closer to the Lord and like life and just enjoyment, not just like machine and, intel in here. But then like that bothers you? Like, I'm sorry, it bothers you. You don't live in my head. Just like I don't live in Levi's head when he's like, dude, my mind chatter is negative. I was like, that's weird. Like mine's not at all. Like at all. I'm reading a lot more about this. Can't talk about all these things because people will freak out, but there's some books. If you email me, I could send you one of them. Or I could tell you where to buy them on Amazon. But one of the things that I've read is different ways to eliminate fear and risk inside your brain. So I don't even deal with that. Like, I think I'm just kind of wired that way. And so then you do some other things that will actually not accentuate that. Yeah, accentuate that. You're like, okay, cool. Could I remove negative chatter? Like, Levi, what would your life look like without negative chatter? Like, I think pretty damn good because I know how talented he is and what he's capable of doing. But what messages are going through his head, I'm like, man, that's gotta just mess with you. For me, even though it's been positive, it's been so consistent. And that's why it's just like, dude, I just need a break from this. Like, okay, these lights, they're on me right now. Like, that'd be nice to just shut them off if, like, we weren't shooting this. In that same way, it's like, how do I turn the light switch off in my brain? Whether it's positive or negative, I think it's something that you have to figure out how to do, or being aware that that's going on. And that's where, to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a thing. It's a real thing. That's why when I got introduced to cannabis and started using it in January of 17 with intent, that was my intent. Not to just, I just want to be dumb and lazy and just eat pizza and watch movies and check out a life. Like if I do that, somebody knock on my door and wake my ass up. Like it's not what I've been doing. But there's been days or hours or times where that's what my body needs. Minus the pizza and the movies. Like really no interest right now in just junk entertainment and just doing that and vegging out like that. And maybe that's subconsciously because people just think, oh, he moved to the beach and he just smokes weed and watches Netflix all day. Like, no, I don't. Like, I don't even need to defend that stupidness. I'm saying it's helped me relax a bit and it's helped me just go, I can be here without being in here. And one day I called my mom. I just she actually asked me, we were talking about something. She goes, hey, Craig, those mints that you talk about. And I was like, what are those called? I was like, the Relaxaments. I don't know. I mean, what happens? And I was like, Mom, tell me a second. Do you have mind chatter? She's like, yes, all the time. And I was like, oh, thanks. Thanks for, now I know where that one came from. Because I don't know. Have you guys talked to your friends about it, your parents? Hey, these thoughts that go around? And I was like, Mom, is it negative or positive? And she sadly said, mostly negative. I worry about, whether it's health or kids or I don't know. I don't know why it's negative. I'm not in it. It just made me sad. And so I was like, yes, so does Levi. And yeah, I found benefits from cannabis. Don't need that as a crutch, but that opened me up to maybe a different state of being that isn't high, but it drops me out of a space where I'm just constantly trying to just keep the lights on here. And I can just sit and I can be, and it doesn't matter. Like what is going on. It doesn't need to be entertainment or this and that. I can sit and be present. And then sometimes I can do that with intent. Like I talked about at the spa days, like, hey, I'm going to go here. And whether that's a mint or, like I've got this, like this Pax pen where it's just like, it's a matter of like, hey, I'm trying to do something here but my mind's trying to get me over here to do something completely different. And it's like, man, whether that's focus, oh, you should take, Adderall, or you should take this, or you could take, I'm sure there's a number of things to do it. I've found to have some benefit there. And so this whole thing, like, it just opened us up where me and Levi were just like, hey, why don't we just share our conversations? Because I think there's, whether you're positive or negative, or maybe it's a blend of both, like, how do you quiet the noise inside your head? And I'm not just saying, hey, just smoke. I think talking about it is a big thing. Being aware of it, because until you're aware of it, you just might be like, oh, well, I didn't know that was so different. And then being willing to, like, ask a lot of questions with others. Like, so instead of just telling me how I feel or what you think, I mean, Jeanette and I, we do it all the time now. It's kind of fun. It's just like, hey, let's, she'll say something and it's just like, oh, wait, do you want to know how I'm actually feeling? Like, instead of assuming, and it's so much different than maybe how she saw something. And that's when you're like, oh my gosh, like, we see things not just so differently, but it's like we've all got something different going on in our head. All that to say is, if it's negative, man, that is concerning, because where's that coming from? Where are those voices? What is that holding you back from? And I think that's negative noise that shouldn't be there. To me, the positive stuff that I hear is like, yes, go. Like, clear and clarity and steps that I need to make. And it's just like, it's exciting. One night, was that right after we wrote this and talked about it? And it sounds weird, and you can be like, yeah, Craig's so high right now. No, I'm not even high. So here's this. I'm not even high. There's no drugs involved. It was at 7:00 on a Monday night, and I was in like some heavy thought over just kind of some of the stuff I'd been writing. And I just said, Lord, like, what's it like to be in Levi's head? And I spent 30 minutes inside his head. That sounds weird. Yeah, it's weird. When I said, I think last week, like, be careful what you ask for. Yeah, I called him the next day and I told him. And that's kind of strange as well, but that's what I said. We got to stop saying that. Oh, that's weird. That's strange. Hey, Levi, didn't do drugs last night. Didn't smoke anything. Didn't do, not that he judges or cares, but it's like, this sounds like I did, right? Oh, man, my mind's just being worked by all these drugs. No. Hey, Lord, what's that like? And Levi said, show me that. And for 30 minutes or so, it was torture. Because my life, with that negative chatter, and I just announced quitting. I was just written the thing about quitting my job at XXX Church, moving on, starting Cannabis, doing this thing, and then I started second guessing all those decisions. I started seeing all this stuff fall apart. I started seeing, like, just everything crumble. And then I was crippled. I was just like, I can't move. I made the wrong decision, so now I can't make any new decisions. And I'm not saying that's as extreme as Levi. But what you'll see in here is, and maybe you resonate with both of us, going, man, there's something going on if this is going on all the time. And all I wanted in my search for some quietness was just, how do I slow that down at times? But also be aware that, no, at times that's a gift. And, where that chatter's coming from. I think, to me, if it's super dark and it's negative, that's not from the Lord. But clearing some of that stuff out and starting to believe that, like, not believe those lies, but start believing the truth and start walking in it. But all that stuff's crazy when you're actually trying to figure it out, because all this stuff's going on, and yet we're here talking, and yet something else is going on that might be sending you in so many different directions. And then you're like, I can't talk about it. And that's sometimes, I know, like, for me and Jeanette, like, when I say it's mostly positive, it's not, it's heavy though. I'll get something comes over me, and then I'm thinking about, like, why am I thinking about walking the kids down, walking at least down the aisle on our wedding day right now? Like, why am I going there? And And Jeanette's like, oh, you okay? It's like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. No, I'm not fine. Like, I went there, and I don't know. We kept pushing this one down, and it's like, where does it fit? And ultimately, I think it's an important conversation in finding who you really are and what those voices in your head, where they come from, who they really are, how they're affecting you and what they're saying to you and what you're believing and then choosing not to believe. Because for me, like, it's hard to make that switch, but I got out of that headspace and called Levi the next day. And it's a choice I got to make, I think, every day to not even entertain those things. And yeah, I'm not saying there's not risk or being aware of obviously not being reckless, but there's things where you're like, no, dude, that's not truth. Like, that's not the truth. And I'll say that so many times to Levi, like, hey, dude, those things are not true. And at some point, you got to bury those, unless you want to continue to just be tormented. And then on the other side, sometimes you just want to turn off the lights for a second and just go, hey, let's just chill. So, mind chatter. It's confusing as all get out. But take a peek, a listen, a read. I guess you just took a listen, but take a read of what we wrote, and maybe if it lands, I'd love to hear more. Seriously, on this one, just I'm fascinated when I meet somebody that's like, oh yeah, I deal with that too. Oh, cool. How good does it get, and how dark does it go, or where does it go? Like, I'd love to hear that, because I think it's a fascinating topic. So, thanks.
Thanks for thinking through Craig Brain. This podcast is only a small summarized part of a larger conversation. To read the full story, check out www.craigbrain.com and follow @Craig Gross on whatever social suits your fancy.